Um, First of all, I just want to say hello. Thank you for joining us today. I'm really excited for this. This is an idea that's kind of been going around in our heads for a while. We have the opportunity to sit down here with James Andrus, the president of Renova, as well as his director of marketing, Kyle Malone. I've got from our QPilot team, Taylor Meyer, who's runs our customer success as well as our data analysis. And myself, I am Matt Holman, the head of growth at QPilot. I work directly with a lot of brands and advising them how to grow their subscriptions. And I'm really excited for the two guests that we have with us today, which is Rishi Rawat, who specializes in product page optimization for e-commerce stores, as well as Lorenzo Carreri, who is a CRO and experimentation specialist, particularly in the e-commerce space. So just want to take a moment to say hello to everybody. Thank you all for joining us. James, I would love for you to take a moment and just explain to us a little bit more about Renova and your story.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks so much for having us, Matt. This is we're talking to the guys beforehand, and thrilled anytime we can dive into some data, but especially when it's ours. So this can be a great session that I think will be really beneficial for a lot of people. But we are Renova Worldwide. Like you said, I'm James Andrus. I'm the president of Renova Worldwide, joined by Kyle Malone, our director of marketing. And we are a health and wellness company that markets and distributes a line of nutritional supplements, our flagship of which is Lightning, which we consider the most important nutritional supplement in the world, which we understand is a bold claim, but we believe we can back that up. We've been around for coming up on 3 years here. Next month will be 3 years. And interestingly, we launched back in May of 2019 as a network marketing company. Our thought process at the time was that this product is, a lot of its impact comes from the stories of the lives of the people that it's changed. And we didn't think that we could have the level of success that we wanted to by just sticking it on a store shelf. It's hard to get a full story when it's just there with a bunch of other bottles or similar products. And so we launched with word of mouth as our primary form of marketing, and ran that for almost 3 years. And it was going really well. And then all of a sudden the world changed, and people stopped getting together and talking face to face. And so when you're relying on people to share the story about how a product has changed their life, and they're not interacting with people anymore, it put a real damper on things.
And that's interesting, because for a lot of online businesses, COVID was a benefit because people were buying online, but you're saying the primary motivator for a lot of your sellers was being able to interact physically with people. And without being able to meet in person, that was a change in that. So you've taken an approach to changing how you're working your business. And then could you just take just a moment too? I think the story of how the product was developed, I know you said you've been around 3 years, but the product and what it does has been around a lot longer. Could you tell us just a little bit more about that?
Yeah. So Lightning is built on a formula called Empower Plus. And that formula has actually been around for just about 25 years now, and was originally formulated by a gentleman up in Canada who's one of our co-founders. And his wife had battled with mental illness for several years and ended up taking her own life. And he had 10 children at the time, and his two oldest were suffering from many of the same struggles that she did. And this was back in the 80s, and doctors said there's not much that you can do, and so you just need to prepare yourself for them to go down the same road as their mother. And interestingly, he was an engineer by trade and didn't like that for an answer. Right. And got to work and ended up finding some motivation in the animal feed industry, and found that a lot of the challenges that people have are actually a result of nutrition deficiencies, and ended up putting together this formula. There's been several iterations that it's evolved throughout the years, but the essence of it has remained the same. It's 36 vitamins, minerals, amino acids, plant extracts, and such that are now proven to benefit brain health. And there's now 35 medical journal publications. And in the summer of 2018, a new technology was discovered. It's now our proprietary direct to cell technology, but it allowed us to take it from a capsule that it had been in for 20 plus years and turn it into what looks like a pixie stick. Or you see a lot of those things that the water enhancers, they're in a little convenience stick, important water to go. And it looks very similar to that. However, it's even more convenient than that in that you don't need water. So you actually pour it directly in your mouth and it's absorbed through the membranes in your cheeks and goes right to the brain where it's of the most benefit. And so if you've got gut absorption issues like so many people do, you're actually able to bypass that benefit in before unseen ways. And so we thought that justified putting together a new company. And so Renova Worldwide was born with the purpose of spreading hope to people by spreading a better way of supplementation through lightning. And from there, we've added some supplemental products, and we've got the sky's the limit for this technology and the applications that we can use it with.
Yeah, it's really, really cool. So a lot of people that are having issues with mental health, focus, like, basically trying to find that energy they need to make it through the day. Like, I know that you've talked a lot when we've talked before about your mission to try to basically give the world the vitamins and minerals it needs to be more healthy, both mentally and physically. So, and you do have sales in the US, Canada, and in Europe. Is that right?
We do. Yep. Australia as well, New Zealand, but predominantly Canada and the European Union.
Awesome. Okay, cool. Well, yeah, so that's awesome, James, and I appreciate that. I think it's important to understand the context of your product when we have people here also diving in, one, because it's a cool product, but two, for understanding like users and customers that are interacting with your brand and buying your product and using it. That's why Rishi and Lorenzo are here, is to help us break some of that down. So understanding why people would want to be buying that in the first place is really important. So so the first part of what we want to do, I think it might be important just to highlight too. I think for me and advising with brands, I think it's really kind of, subscriptions can seem oftentimes extra complicated. It's something that's, although it's not necessarily new technology, how you do well at it is more difficult. So I think understanding that, the way I like to approach it is understanding that there's two main aspects of a subscription, right? There's the conversion element and there's the retention element. That doesn't mean they're separate. They play into each other. What affects good conversions can help affect your retention, and retention issues can also affect your conversion issues. But to try to just frame that as an idea of how we get into that, and understanding how people are behaving either on the site or on a subscription order over time from a data standpoint is really, really important. And so from there, I want to kind of hand that off to Lorenzo, who's going to be starting to dive into, I should highlight as well that QPilot collects a lot of data. So we have a lot of data related to user behavior, what they're doing, what they're ordering, when they're pausing, canceling, all that. So we've provided everyone here on the call with a lot of data related to Renova's program. So anybody who's been highlighting that and any questions that we have related to that, we can answer as well on our side, myself or Taylor. So Lorenzo, why don't you take off?
Cool. Thanks, Matt. I'm going to be sharing my screen. All right. So my main, I would say, approach is whenever I start working with a client in general is first start collecting both quantitative and qualitative data. So what you guys are seeing here is a bunch of recommendations in terms of like, okay, if I were to start with you guys tomorrow, here's a bunch of questions that I would try to answer if the goals are mainly three. First one, increase the conversion rate overall of the website. Second, increase the conversion rate of just the subscription part. So increase the number of people that choose the subscription versus one time. And then third, improve retention. So let's start with the conversions for conversion purposes only. So the first thing that I would do is setting up customer surveys, and there's a specific type of like purposes that I would want to figure out. I want to understand why your customers are currently buying from you, what kind of alternative solutions they've considered. And for example, Matt, when you were talking about getting energy, the first thing I thought is like, I wonder if they considered something that is not really related to supplement, but something like a coffee, for example.
Right.
I wonder if during the consideration process, whenever the customers were like, oh, should I choose this or that, they're thinking about coffee as a substitute to Lightning. Then what almost stopped them from buying? So whenever they're going through the website and there's a decision-making process happening in their brain, I would want to understand if there was one thing in particular that almost, said that maybe I'm not too sure. I would want to understand what that thing is. And then finally, the pain point they're trying to solve by buying your product, right? Again, I was actually going through the reviews and somebody was talking about more like the result that they got from the product. And somebody was saying, well, this product compared to like coffee, for example, is able to give me energy throughout the day. And I'm not an energy expert. I'm just a conversion optimization guy. So I wonder, wow, so there's different type of energies, right? There's the energy throughout the day, and then there's the coffee energy, which is like more like a rush that lasts just few hours, right? So that's a huge difference. So I would want to understand more about those pain points. Then let's talk about the other specific type of surveys I would want to run, which is just for the subscription customers. So your customers that bought the subscription option. So I would want to understand what are the main benefits that they're getting from the subscription. And then the other point here I had is like, okay, buying a product in the subscription involves a future purchase, right? Because you're not just buying one time. In the future, the company will charge my credit card. So I would want to understand if there is any sort of like hesitation and anxiety that the customers have gone through their brain when they were about, oh, should I choose one time or subscription? And they chose subscription. I would want to understand what those anxieties are. And if we want to get a little bit more advanced here, I would even segment the customers that are on a subscription that've never bought anything from you guys before. Because I'm sure you guys are going to have some customers that were first, they tried your product first with a one-time solution. They liked it, and they're like, you know what? It's going to be super convenient to now buy the product in a subscription because I get it every, whatever the frequency is. While the people that bought the subscription right away, because of that friction point of having to pay on a monthly base, I would want to understand what convinced them to buy there.
Because it's going to be different for depending, right? People have tried it, they become comfortable with the product. That is typically the obvious reason why people, you would think, don't choose a subscription right away, is they're not familiar with the product. But you're saying get the specific data, understand exactly what prompted them to be comfortable doing that, or what they were thinking about, even though they hadn't tried the product before.
Yeah, I can talk about, like, in my experience working with the subscription businesses, oftentimes the concept of, oh, can I cancel the subscription? Is it free to cancel the subscription? Can I pause? Like, there's a lot of questions going on. And I'm not saying that this is the same kind of like anxieties and fears that your customers are having. That's why we're doing research to understand them. But the other point I have here is more about
transition, Lorenzo. Can I ask you a question about those surveys?
Yeah.
Would you recommend sending that out, like just including that as a post-purchase survey, so it's something that shows up on their order confirmation screen, or is this something you would envision sending out like as an email, after the fact?
Yeah, it's a super good question. So for this segment of customers, so customers that are the most recent buyers, actually, there's no really huge difference between just setting up like a pop-up on the thank you page, where you're actually pushing people outside on the survey tool, whatever survey tool you're using. There's not really difference. I think it's more like a choice based on like whatever is convenient to you guys. The other alternative for this one is just like, okay, I'm going to create a segment in whatever email marketing tool you guys are using. And that segment can be trigger an email asking to fill out the survey, let's say like 30 minutes from when they purchased. There's a specific reason why I'm saying 30 minutes, and is because there's still they still remember the decision-making process that they've gone through. So there's like they're gonna fill out the survey with more insightful data. For the customer survey to understand the subscription, I would probably target the people that have used the subscription for at least like 2-3 times, because they got the benefit from it. So there's kind of like more usage about the subscription, and you can do that with an email marketing tool.
That makes sense. Thank you.
No problem. Then talking about a few other things that I would do with the conversion goal in mind. So there's a lot of like micro actions that your customers can have on the product page, for example. And this is the lightning, which is the bestseller, right, guys?
Yep.
Right.
Yeah, so there's few micro conversions, and just for the people listening, what I mean with micro conversions is something that a micro action that users can have on a product page. So for example, clicking on a product image is a micro action. So I would want to track that behavior, because I would want to understand how many people are actually seeing those images, right? Are looking at those images. For example, you guys have here no water needed, which is an additional kind of like a detail about the product that is important. But if people don't click on that image, they don't see that specificity and detail, right? So I would want to track that behavior. The other thing, scrolling down a little bit, there is a section here with different product tabs. So there's the description, the key ingredients, how to take it. So these parts are quite important, because there's a lot of people that might want to learn more about the nutrition facts, the key ingredients. So I would want to track that the clicks on those 4 things using Google Analytics events, which are, they can be implemented through Google Tag Manager. The other thing that I would want to track on this page specifically is, so if we select the flavor, let's say the banana flavor, here there's the subscribe and save option that can be selected. I would want to understand if people on mobile are clicking on this tooltip, because there's important information on that tooltip about the ability to change and cancel the subscription anytime, which in my experience, it's something that is a question that is going on in the user's mind. And based on that, we want to see how many people are actually clicking on that tooltip. Because if very little people are clicking on it, maybe there's an opportunity here to change. Instead of just using an I, for example, you can use like a copy, like, important information about subscription, or why you should subscribe, or so to incentivize people to click on that to read more information about it. The other point I have here is like, I wonder, another type of data point that I love to collect is customer support tickets. Oftentimes people reach out to customer support for a lot of different reasons, right? One reason could be for sure to ask information about the product, right? So I would want to understand what are the top reasons for reaching out to you guys. Maybe, do you know any of these reasons on the top of your mind, James?
Yeah, and we have a tagging system in place for our customer support team.
Love it.
So we can easily categorize and look through that data. A lot of people reach out for support with their subscriptions, whether they need to change the products on there, change the frequency, or if they want to cancel their subscription even. Lots of product questions. Our products do require a bit more education than does your typical multivitamin. And so we get a lot of people that reach out with product related questions. And I would say really between those two, those are our two leading causes of support.
Yeah, talking about like the education for the product, for example, one question I like, one common kind of like challenge that I found is that there's some information that is very important to the user in the decision-making process, but maybe that information is either hidden or people are not finding that information on the site because it's maybe like in the FAQ page and nobody goes to the FAQ page, or it's in the section that people don't really visit. So that information is very, very critical for the people to make that purchase. And that's why they reach out to you guys, to ask that question. And an example to that was, I saw the direct to sell section here in the drop down in the burger menu. This is a very important concept for your product. For me, the question I had is like, well, I wonder how many people are actually clicking on that section in the burger menu and actually going on that page and navigating and understanding all the content around that. You can simply look at like your Google Analytics data. For example, you could do, okay, I'm going to create a segment in Google Analytics that compare the conversion rate of people that have gone through this page, have visited this page and then converted, with the people that have not visited that page at all. And I'm speculating here, I guarantee, well, not I guarantee, but my speculation is that the direct to sell, the people that have visited the direct to sell page have a higher conversion rate because they've gone through content. There's a lot of great content on that page.
And I should add a data point to this point, Lorenzo, because I studied the page, and I'm a professional supposed to study the page in great detail, and I did not notice this thing. I'm noticing it for the first time, so it's fair to speculate that a lot of people would be in my boat.
Cool. Still talking about this, another point I have is you guys have this section called Discover Lightning, which is almost like a pre-product page. That's kind of like the way I kind of define it. So to me, that's interesting. And the type of analysis that I would want to do is how many people don't visit this page at all and just go to the product page, because there's a lot of content. I actually really like the content on this page. There's even like a pretty compelling video. So I wonder if there's a different behavior, especially when it comes to like conversion rate, because your product is very particular when it comes to like, it's almost like you need to truly understand a bunch of different information. So I would want to understand the people that land on your website, visit this page, again, pre-product page, and then convert, versus those that go directly to the product page and they don't even visit this section of the site.
Yeah, and I'll say that's something that James and I have talked about. We need to get more organized, I think, with this funnel here, and figure out exactly where people are going, and if they're going where we want them to go, that's gonna, convert at a higher rate. Because there's this page, like you said, it's almost a pre-product page, and so where does that fall in place?
Yeah, I would totally create a segment in Google Analytics to understand if this page is helping people in the decision-making process to convert, in order to convert, or not.
Yeah, and I would add, I think, as part of that user journey from a subscription standpoint, if I'm able to understand that this is a product that I can take on a daily basis and that I should be taking on a daily basis, that's a stronger incentive to want to be able to have the product on a regular basis ordered and delivered for me.
Cool. I spoke a lot. Any thought, about what I just spoke about, guys?
I think this is, so as I kind of mentioned in our introduction, we started out as a network marketing company. We've since made a transition away from that business model, actually in the beginning of February, and our focus now on e-commerce, as our primary channel. And one of the things that we quickly found out is that we didn't have all the data that we needed to ensure that we were going to be successful in this space. And so This has been a big focus of ours, and there's a couple of things that I think we'll touch on in the next section that we've already implemented that you're going to talk about. But I think this is some fantastic information to really help to guide us and to help others to be successful in this arena. It's kind of it's a pretty saturated arena right now, and there's a lot of changes going on, and so I think anything that we can get to give us a leg up is a benefit.
Yeah, in a lot of ways, we're starting all over again. So we don't have any new traffic that's coming to the website. That's not a direct result of someone sharing product with someone. So like James said, a lot of these data points, we're still trying to figure out what we need. We don't know what we don't know yet. So we're trying to figure that out and start all over.
Yeah, one thing that I just thought about is I'm not familiar with I know the concept of the network, but I'm not too familiar with it. But one thing that it could be interesting to learn more from is like almost like, how do you convince other people to actually start using the product, right? Because it's almost like one-to-one selling, and that's super interesting data to understand and collect.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, you collect completely different data when that's your primary form of marketing as compared to this. And so we're trying to figure out how to take the benefits and marry that with this different world. And it's been an interesting journey so far.
Yeah, one thought I had is, like, for example, the whole concept of objections, right? Like, if you're a salesperson, you need to be able to handle objections, right? So, Rishi's job is, he's a conversion copywriter, and he actually, one of his specialty is this one, and one-to-one selling is lowering the objection, while, for example, in Rishi's case, one-to-many selling is also lowering objections, right?
Yeah.
Cool. Let's talk about the recommendation for improving retention and lowering churn purposes. So there's few things I put here. First of all, one recommendation I would have is to set up a cancellation funnel analysis. So the way to think about it, your users at the moment go through an acquisition funnel. And what that means is that they land on the site, let's say on the homepage, and they go on like category page and then a product page, cart, and checkout, right? The same thing happens when they want to cancel a subscription with you guys. So, my hypothesis is that maybe that starts in the members area, because they go in the members area and they try to look at the section in the members area where they can cancel it. So what I would want to do is set up a cancellation funnel in Google Analytics to understand where the biggest drop-offs are. And in particular, I would want to collect the reasons for canceling. Is that something that you guys are doing at all?
Yeah, funnily enough, we actually implemented a little cancellation pop-up. So you're spot on as to how it works. You go to your My Account, and then you click on My Subscriptions, and once you're in there, you can click Delete. When they do that, we now have a pop-up that says, we're sorry that you want to delete your subscription. Here are the benefits that you're going to lose by deleting your subscription. And then we also ask them just a one-question survey that says, we welcome areas of opportunity. What is your reason for canceling? And we give them 5 or 6 options that we've populated, then also give them another option where they can just type in manually the reason if it doesn't align with our available options. And that way we can then analyze, and if we're getting a lot of them that are the same in that other section, we can then add that to the predetermined options. But just in the short time, we've been able to gather some great data about why people are canceling, and we can now use that to maybe make some tweaks beforehand to get ahead of those.
What are some of those, James, that have been the top reasons that you found so far?
Top reasons, the top 2 so far have been, I didn't realize I was setting up a subscription, which is particularly interesting. And then the other one is I have too much product on hand.
Okay.
Yeah, and we have some we have some thoughts on why that is. But each of our products, if taken properly, are designed to be used up in a month. And the majority of our subscription users do, I believe it's about 80%, do process their subscription each month. And so that aligns with that. However, we had a loyalty program in place and tied to our subscriptions. And the reward for that is after every 3 successful subscriptions that you processed, you would receive 1 free product of your choosing. And the idea was that you would use this to either try a new product or use it as an opportunity to get a product to share with someone else. But what has happened is it's kind of been a double-edged sword. We had some people that did that, but also we have a number of people that just used it to stock up. And so then they've in turn canceled their subscription because they have too much product on hand. So we are actually revamping that loyalty program right now and seeing what that does to that data.
So you're going to change it so they're not getting product. It's more like maybe a discount or another special so that they're okay.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah, one thing that I would add, so earlier, James, you said that sometimes your customers reach out to you also to your customer support to cancel. And it's great that you tag them all in different kind of like topics and so on. One thing that I would recommend is to also mine that data, mine the data of the people that cancel. Because my experience, oftentimes the agent, like the classic scenario is Lorenzo comes in as a customer, talks to the agent and says, oh, can you cancel my subscription? And the agent just says, yeah, sure. Okay, done, canceled, right? But what he should be doing or she should be doing is start to gather a little bit more qualitative data around why they're trying to cancel. And that data is super valuable and that can be used to tackle the problem of why they're canceling. So instead of like making it like super easy and not saying anything to the customer, to the user, just ask a couple of questions or why they're canceling, because oftentimes, you know, there's a lot of kind of like solutions that you can come up with.
Yeah, and that's one of the balances that we've been trying to find recently is the balance between gathering as much information as we can while also not requiring too much of the customer who's already in desirous to delete their subscription. And so that's why with the pop-up that we put together, it's just, here's the benefits that you're losing, we're sorry to see you go, and then that one question. We'd love to have some follow-up questions after that, and we're exploring maybe the best ways to gather that, but the same comes through in our customer support. For a long time, we've been gathering that information and adding that to the tags and the internal notes. But it's kind of a tricky balance sometimes, and we're still trying to find that line of, how much can you gather without pushing too far.
Yeah. I wasn't suggested to be like, some telco companies that, yes, I wasn't suggesting that at all.
Yeah.
Cool. I'm gonna cover a few other things really quick, and then I'll give the word to Rishi. So Taylor put together a nice presentation about your data, and one thing that I thought it was very interesting is that the reasons for canceling, I would try to understand the reasons for canceling at the days until deleted level. And what I mean by that is that most customers cancel within the 15 days and after 60 days. So what I would want to do is understanding qualitatively, why is that happening for both scenarios? Because it's almost like at the beginning right away, and then after 60 days, which are completely different type of segments of customers, right? Like after 15 days, to me, sounds like I tried a product, but something the experience I didn't like it, but this is my my speculation. And then after 60 days, usually like you already got the product 2-3 times. There must be another reason for it, right? So that's why I think it would make sense to do that.
One thing that comes to mind too, James, is understanding consumption behavior on how many people are like understanding. It's like, yeah, if I order a box of 30 and it's intended for 30 days, how many people are actually taking one every day? Is it more like 2 out of every 3 days, 4 out of every 5 days? Is there consumption information you can be gathering as well if your top reason for canceling is that people have too much product?
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and we've recently revamped our product pages, and I think we'll dive into that a little later here, but that was one of the things that we put on there is we added a how to take it section to try to get ahead of that. You know, not only because the delivery method is a little bit unconventional and that you don't put it in water like it looks like, but also to help people understand how frequently they're supposed to be taking it for optimal results.
And then one other thing too, I would say is understand that notification engagement strategy of every time an order is about to process and you're sending those emails. Is that a question you're asking at that point every time? Like, how much product do you have? You know, like one of the things, Lorenzo, you've brought up, and I see it right on your sheet, if you don't mind me jumping ahead a little bit, is this pause button, right? So you don't have anybody pausing because you don't have the option to pause.
Right.
What's the reason behind that?
So interestingly, that was tied to the prior business model. So whether or not you had an active subscription determined your role within the organization. And so if you had a subscription, you were considered a preferred customer with us. And being a preferred customer got you access to exclusive pricing, as well as a couple of other perks. And so it was easier on the back end to have either an active subscription or no subscription. And so we removed the option to pause from on the customer side. And so
if you're talking about people that are canceling because they have too much product, right? Like, understand that engagement strategy is, if I'm sending you an email to remind you that your order is about to process, but I'm also questioning, hey, how much product do you have on hand? If you have more than 30 days, pause your subscription instead of cancel, right? Making that an option. And then there's a way within QPilot that you can segment, right? So you can use Zapier to trigger segmenting within Klaviyo or any other email app, so that anybody who's paused, you can send them a follow-up like 15 or 30 days later saying, hey, like, has your usage gone down? Do you need to reactivate your subscription? That kind of thing.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense.
Does QPilot have the option to select pause for 30 days or pause for 60 days where it will automatically reactivate, or?
Not necessarily. It's really more about when they pause, they're going to just be put into a segment, but you should be able to do a couple things, either manually downloading your users to see like how long it's been, if you did that on a periodic basis, as well as you might be able to use Klaviyo to see how long somebody's been in an audience. And that's the two ways I would look at doing it.
Perfect.
The other thing you guys could be doing is, do you send the upcoming email when the order is about to ship?
Yeah, we send one 10 days before it's supposed to process, and then 2 days before.
Yeah, one thing you could be doing is, if they want, they can just simply like a copy, like a piece of copy, one line in that email saying, not ready for the order yet, or already have enough quantity, you can pause. It's almost like an additional call to action. So instead of having the user going in the members area to pause it, you'll give them the opportunity to pause in that upcoming email.
Okay. Yeah, a lot of people. This is actually something that people reach out to support about pretty regularly, is this very thing. But instead of pausing it, what they do is they just move their subscription back.
Yeah,
you know,
that's
one of the reasons that we loved QPilot was the flexibility that it provided, and being able to just change the date that it's supposed to process has worked really well for our support staff.
And I actually, James, I'm glad you brought that, because I like that better. So instead of saying to somebody to pause, you can tell somebody, like Lawrence is just saying, move it to when you think you got it. Like I look, I've got about 2 weeks left. I'm going to move my date out 2 weeks. And then within QPilot, some of that data you could look at on cancellation behavior, you can see on whether somebody has moved their date or not. On On our platform, we see like anytime anybody changes the date that boosts LTV up significantly because they're sticking around longer. So you could be able to see within the data of, okay, people that are moving their date are less likely to cancel as compared to somebody who's only pausing or not moving the date. They're more likely to cancel.
Yeah, and that goes along with what I was saying, pause for 30 or pause for 60, because then that requires another manual action on their part where they're probably going to drop off.
Right.
So
that's a good point.
The more automated it is, the better, I think.
Yeah. Thanks, guys, for knowing my product better than I do.
To build on that just a little bit too, one nice thing about doing next occurrence dates instead of paused is that if they forget about it, it's not lost, or you don't have to go back and manage it, just like Kyle mentioned. It's already set up to process. They already have it. They're going to get those 10 and 2-day notifications if they like need to move it again or something like that. So I'm really glad that came up because I really like that idea as well.
So do you think that's a valid replacement for the pause feature, just to delay and just not even have the pause?
Well, I mean, you could add the pause in. Two schools of thought. You could just try it, like just make the shift where you're just prompting people to change the next occurrence date. The other thing would be creating a pop-up on a pause button that says, wait, why don't you just set the next occurrence date so you don't forget? Right. Like, again, the nature of the product is it's something that's important that needs to be consumed regularly. You could put the pause button on there if you are worried about canceling. Again, this comes back to how many people you're losing on a cancellation basis. And this is something I would not do all this at once. I would maybe pick how you're going to implement it, like pick just changing the data around the changing the next occurrence date in the emails and just the copy that explains how easy that is. And even linking that button where it goes, somebody's logging right in where they can change that to then see, does that change? How does that affect your cancellations over time? And then depending on how well that works or not, okay, maybe we need a pause button to implement that. Lorenzo's also mentioned data mining your customer support tickets to see how many people are asking to be pausing or canceling or changing that next occurrence date. So that should prioritize where you do that. But I would only do one at a time. So if you do that one and then the pause one, you could put the pause button on there, and then you could put the pop-up on there that's telling them to try changing the next occurrence date.
So I wonder if we add that to the cancellation pop-up. So if they click delete, it pops up and they select, I have too much product on hand, then we can have a subsequent message that says, instead of canceling, why don't you push out your next occurrence date? And if we're able to track that whole flow, see the impact of whether or not people continue with the cancellation or if they go back and change the date instead.
Yep. Yeah, it's a great idea.
Honestly, if they have too much product, they're probably going to want more later.
It's true.
Cool. The last thing were more around the involuntary churn that is happening. From the data, I saw that 24% of empty orders, which I believe, Taylor, means there's no product. So, I'm not 100% sure, obviously, how the system, works. So the question I had is like, okay, how can we avoid that?
So did you want to talk, Matt?
No, go ahead, please.
I was going to say, so you're right. Empty orders just mean there's absolutely no product. We usually see that for one of two reasons. One, the customer created it from the customer UI. So like my account page, and just didn't add products. They were experimenting. Or two, they didn't know that they could delete it or pause it or change the next occurrence date. So they just removed the products in order to not get it.
Gotcha.
Those are like those two things. So what I usually recommend is actually focusing on the second one. Is if a customer had products and they remove it, what can we do to mitigate that? Can you ask them to update the next occurrence date, kind of building off what we were just talking about? Or, in the native UI, you'll see that it'll show a pop-up of like, hey, are you sure you want to remove this product? Would you rather update it, delete it, things like that? So those are some ways of how you can kind of avoid that 24%.
Yeah, and we found the same to be true. We actually made we had a price increase a couple months ago, and there were several people who, instead of deleting their subscription, they just went in and emptied it. They took all of the products out of it, and then it's just sat there empty for quite some time. And as our support team has reached out to them, that has been overwhelmingly the response, is that I didn't delete it. I didn't know how to delete it. And so I just removed all the products. And so in regards to the first option that you talked about, where people create it from the native UI and then just don't add any products to it, we were having that quite a bit. I mean, there was to the point where we had people who had 7 or 8 subscriptions that were empty, and then one active one that had been processing for a long time. And so we actually ended up removing, if they already have an active subscription, we removed the button that says create new subscription right from that section. And that we've had no negative feedback on that. And that has curtailed that significantly.
Good.
Yeah.
Cool. That's it from my side, guys.
Okay. Cool. Well, I'm excited for Rishi, the product page guy, to be able to talk to us a lot about his recommendations. Like you said, spend some time on the page. Yeah.
Awesome. I'm gonna be pretty brief with my section, and obviously I'll open it up to questions as well. So just to kind of paint a picture for the mental model that I use for optimizing product pages. When we started this presentation, James talked about the founder story and how the product came about, and I thought it was really compelling. And I'm sure all of us felt like, wow, that's really, really compelling. So the way I look at it is that every time the founding team or the team that's responsible describes to people like me or Lorenzo or anyone else what the product does, it's so powerful and so evocative. And yet, the question then becomes is that how do we scale this? Like if we could like actually bring all people from the website and have them talk to James, or talk, it would be totally different, but that's not what we can do. So what I'm trying to figure out is like, how do we actually convert our product page to communicate that same message with that same efficacy? And so that's kind of like how I kind of look at it. So let me go ahead and just quickly share my screen, and we can just go over this. So there are a lot of things. I'm going to actually just reorganize my screen a little bit. There's a lot of things. We're not going to go through the whole product page, but I want to mention there are a lot of things about the product page I really, really, really like. Just the copy choices are great. Let's get real. Your daily multivitamin isn't meeting all your nutritional needs. This is, again, I don't know if this is intentional or not, but I kind of break my head writing copy all day long. And what I can tell you is that this statement over here is super powerful, because you are essentially talking about something, but you're actually not giving the solution for it. So that means as a reader, I actually have to continue reading the sales page to actually understand
Right.
what is the meaning of meeting all of my nutritional needs. And so, when you're writing copy, our objective is not to, it would be amazing to think about like, oh, could we close the sale in the first paragraph? But really that's not realistic. Our objective is to actually, our biggest enemy is not the fact that people aren't converting. It's the fact that people are reading the first paragraph and not reading anything more. So my job is to think about how do we structure our sales page so there's actually a flow and people actually continue reading. So there's a lot of things that you've said here, and I wanted to point out some of them that I thought were like super, super powerful. Like this statement over here, not all supplements are created equal. This is super powerful, because what you've done is you are one of my competitors. One of my challenges as a marketer is the fact that people who are coming to my website are aware of the fact that they have a ton of options. And so before I can actually get them to, my objective is to actually get them to pay attention to my option first. I have full confidence in my product, and I know that if they actually listen to what the product's about, they will in all likelihood like it. But the problem is that before I even start my presentation, the consumer is already aware of the fact that, hey, I can just do a Google search and find 10 other multivitamins. So what this statement does, it says not all supplements are created equal. It actually diffuses that thought, because now I know that, wait a minute, they're not all the same. So I need to stick around a little longer to understand what's unique about these guys. So it's very, very clever use of words. I loved it. Now, what I want to talk about is the model that I use for thinking about product page optimization. So this is not a popular idea, but it's certainly the way I kind of look at it, is that I look at your product page as being an old school direct response ad. And many of you are young enough to not even know what a direct response ad old school looks like. But this is how it used to be. There used to be like this giant ad, and there would be this copy, and right at the bottom of this, there'd be a little kind of tear out. You fill in your information, you send in a coupon, and that's how the advertiser would know if the ad worked or not. And I kind of think that that's how we should look at our product pages. And to add to this complexity, if you look at your analytics data, what you will find, and I'm pretty confident that this is going to be true for you because it's true for the 400 other retailers that I've looked at the data for, is the fact that over 80% of people that come to our product page come to our website just once, which means that if we don't convert them in that first visit, statistically speaking, we've essentially lost them. So not only am I trying to give them information on the product page, I need to give them complete information on the product page. Now, this is where we come across our first major obstacle, which is that there are two types of actors who are landing on our product page. They are skimmers and diggers. And skimmers, in really simple terms, are people that are looking for super short to the point content. They typically don't have a lot of questions. They just they have certain keywords in their mind. So their keywords might be multivitamin, bioavailability, gut interaction, whatever those keywords are. And if they see a piece of copy, which is short and to the point that includes all of that, they're like, cool, this has everything I'm looking for. I'm sold, I'm going to buy. And those are the people that are buying predominantly right now. But there is this other group, almost like if you're thinking in terms of the universe, the dark matter. And these are the diggers, and they are uber skeptical. Anything that you tell them, it's like a 5-year-old child, but why? But how do I know it works? And that's what they're asking all the time. And the thing is that statistically speaking, it's a much smaller audience than skimmers. So 60% plus of people are skimmers, 30%, around 30 to 40% are diggers. But the reason why you should focus on the diggers is because none of your competitors have the patience to actually talk to them and convince them. So they've all given up and just focused on skimmers. If you can focus on the diggers, you can dramatically improve conversion rate. So how do we, and this is where the dilemma comes in, the diggers want something that is fundamentally different than what skimmers want, but I only have one product page. So how do I know what to serve to whom? And so there are certain simple mechanisms you can use to start satisfying the needs of diggers. So for example, the opening first sentence, second sentence is, many people don't realize that bioavailability plays a crucial role in the effectiveness of vitamins. A skimmer would read this and say, oh my God, I did not know that bioavailability made a difference. I'm so grateful that I've learned this information. This makes me more likely to buy this product. The digger would say, what the heck is bioavailability? This is useless. I don't think this makes any difference at all. And so what happens is that there is no, what we call narrative control to educate the digger if they're stuck on this word term bioavailability. They might even be stuck on it in terms of like, I want to learn more about this wonderful term. I've never heard about it. So what you would do is you would simply make this a hyperlink. The skimmer will ignore this because they already want just short content. The digger would be like, hey, I had an itch in my brain when I read the word bioavailability. There's a link over here, and they'll click on it. And then you show a little light box or a modal or whatever you want to call it, where now this is wonderful because as a copywriter, I don't have to wonder about what I'm going to talk about in the pop-up. The answer is simple. I'm going to talk about bioavailability. That's what the consumer wants to learn more about. And what you can do is you can do the ultimate hack where when you write that little description, one paragraph worth, at the bottom of that, you can simply ask, did we satisfactorily answer your question? And if people say, then now you have two data points. You have a mechanism to satisfy the diggers, but now you are also collecting qualitative and quantitative data, something that Lorenzo loves, about how effectively we actually made that sales pitch. So if 60% of people say no, then the solution is simple. I need to go back and rewrite it because they're looking for something that I was not able to satisfy. So it's instead of rewriting your entire product page, you're just rewriting that section because that's where the consumer casts their vote. So I'll just pause here for a second. So does that kind of make sense?
Absolutely. So on that light box for bioavailability, for example, would that be, would you go in and, pull up like a dictionary definition? Is that the kind of thing you're thinking, or no? Okay.
No. So I think the best way to think about this is to think about, like, imagine you're at a trade show and you're putting up product and there's a customer that walks up to you and says, this is a really interesting product. I've kind of, all the symptoms you're talking about are things that I've struggled with. I'm embarrassed to say this, but I actually don't really understand biological terms in this term bioavailability. I don't know what it means. What would you tell this person? Essentially, you're codifying that in that pop-up. That's how I would look at it.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
Similarly, this term direct to sell, I think Lorenzo pointed this out as well. I mean, it's a critical part of my sales pitch. I mean, this is what differentiates us. So a skimmer would look at this and say, oh my God, this is amazing technology. These guys have figured out a way to kind of go direct to my cell. I can see how that's super effective. The digger is going to be like, how's that even possible? I don't think that's possible. And so the thing is that when it comes to conversion optimization, the only opportunity on the table is converting the people that are skeptical, because the people that are believers are already buying, right? So you can reduce that friction a little more by 5 or 10%. But if you can convince the skeptics by 50%, that's a much bigger jump in conversion rates. And so I would really, really focus in on that group. Like I said, there's a lot of amazing things over here. Now, the other aspect of this, and I'm going to be really short about this, but the other aspect of this is that, showing this as a hyperlink, this is what we would call a micro improvement. But the reality is that there is a lot more content that would be required by a digger. It doesn't even fit into what might fit in your product page. And so typically what we would do, like for example, in the page that we were looking at, this whole messaging around direct to sell, we have a whole different page for it. And the reason why we have a separate page for it is because there's a lot of content. If we fit all of that on the product page, it would be overwhelming for the skimmers. Skimmers are 60% of our sales. We don't want to overwhelm them. So our solution for that is that, so we have this contextual information for bioavailability, but there might be some people, it's kind of clunky because there's some information here, there's some information here, there's some information here. Some people might just find it easier to just read just like a magazine article, just read the whole article top to bottom. It's got the opening, it's got the middle, it's got the end, a classical sales pitch. And now the question becomes is that, okay, number one, I don't want to show this to everyone because the skimmers don't care about it. But number two is I want to not nudge the buyer up to discover it, to see it just once, because 85% of what's on a page, people actually miss out on because they're distracted and they've got other things going on. So I'll show you the mechanism that I've come up with to help people discover the long form sales pitch. So there are three call to actions. One, you'll notice over here, I've changed this copy. So it says not all supplements are created equal. And over here, it's supposed to be a hyperlink, but my tool doesn't allow me to make a hyperlink. So it would be a hyperlink. It says how we are different. So it's a very subtle, basically what's happening is someone reads this and they're like, oh yeah, I want to see how you guys are different. You click on it. And when you click on it, we show a full screen light box where we're giving this a super detailed explanation. And the whole idea is that it'll have an opening, it'll have a middle, it'll have an end. And I'm going to talk to you about what kind of content to cover there. The other thing I've done is that I've added this call to action over here. It says you need to see this. And I don't know if this image is too small or if you guys can see it, but I'll just zoom this in a little bit. So it says you need to see this. Now, I'm not a graphic designer, so this is atrocious design, but you would obviously have to design it on brand. But here's how it works. And this is where the power comes in. If someone clicks on this link, this becomes invisible. So what we're doing is we're maximizing visibility while minimizing repetition. And that's what makes this so powerful. Similarly, if they click on this, then this link becomes invisible because I don't want to show it to them. If they've seen and consumed that content, then I don't want to show it to them again. So I've done it at 3 locations. I've done it over here, and over here. And you'll notice that not only is the design different for each of them, they're all ugly designs, but they're different. And they're different because our brains, Matt's brain will focus in on a different element. And my brain will focus on a different element. So you want to intentionally make them look different. And even the copy is different. It says how we're different. You need to see this. And of course, this also is how we're different. So that would be the mechanism that we'll use to get people to expose themselves to our sales pitch. Now, the skimmers, in all likelihood, will ignore all of this because they don't want to consume more information. They're already looking at this and saying, there's a lot of content over here. If they accidentally click it, they can close out of it as well. So I'll pause here again real quick and say, does this make sense?
So that's leading to a sales page, like that direct to sell page that Lorenzo, like something like that, where you build in a lot of content that addresses bioavailability, all the other aspects, right?
Exactly right. Except we won't take them to a separate page. We'll present it as a modal or a full screen pop-up on this page itself. I don't want to take the person away from the
So
page.
you don't leave the product page itself. Good. That's good to know.
Correct. And then let's just go to the final. I just go through the final part. So now the question is, okay, what am I covering?
Rishi, can you zoom into that copy? Because I can barely see it.
Good. Thank you. Good point.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm just, again, we don't have time to actually go over what that long form sales pitch would look like. You guys can obviously construct it yourself. What I can tell you is, from all the experiments we've done, I'll give you the Lego set for constructing that sales pitch. So here are some of the things that I would think about. The first one is that let's acknowledge the fact that there are many alternatives in the marketplace. And so this is one of the mistakes that marketers make, is that we pretend like we're the only ones. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the wrong choice to make. I think a much better choice is to raise your hand up and say, hey, Mr. Skeptic, I know that you know that there are tons of options. Let me explain to you how we're different. Because now what you've done is you've diffused that thought in their mind that says, I need to look at other alternatives. So what I've done here is I've said that, and I've just made up this number, there are 133 multivitamin brands, because some of these brands spend like crazy. I'm making all of this up, by the way. Spend like crazy on only 2% of people hunting for the perfect multivitamin reach this page. That part is getting cut out. So the idea here is I want to, there is this amazing human desire for discovery. We want to discover, and we want to know we're one of the few people that have actually discovered stuff. So obviously we would have to use your actual numbers over here, but the idea here is to make the person feel like they've just stumbled onto something like that most people don't discover. Then I would like to talk about your origin story. You already talked about it at the top of the presentation. I think this needs to be presented as part of our sales pitch. Then I would talk about price justification. The biggest elephant in the room, no matter how amazing you think your product is that people are going to look at the price point, wherever that is, and say that, this is too much money. And so we have to address that price justification. We have to address that. And this is my single most commonly used conversion trick, is the demonstration of expertise. We are living in a hyper specialized world. The consumer wants to know that you're not just a company that is selling supplements because there's a need for supplements in the marketplace, that we actually we can demonstrate our expertise, which I'm absolutely confident you can, because what I could pick up from our presentation was, this is something you guys think about deeply, but the consumer doesn't know this. And therefore, if we don't communicate it, they're not going to draw that conclusion for us. And then the other thing I would cover is this idea of how we stay ahead of the competition. Because when you demonstrate expertise, it kind of shows what brought you here. But as a consumer, I want to use my dollars to vote for the horse that's going to continue winning into the future. So if you can demonstrate that, not only do we have an amazing product, but we're actually we spend most of our time thinking about how to improve it. And so as a reader, I feel like, wow, if I invest, if I subscribe to this product, then I don't have to ever look to see 6 months from now who else has figured out a better solution, because this has already been resolved. So I'm just going to stop here, but that is what I have. Questions?
So I've got some questions about the price justification and your recommendations on that. And this ties into subscriptions as well. So we are working hard to move away from pricing discounts as the motivator for purchase. and it's a real challenge, and so we're trying to figure out how to build enough value so that the price point is a non-issue. So what is your recommendation for how to do this price justification? And similarly for Matt,
Right.
Do you have any brands that are finding success in getting people to subscribe without using product discounts as the motivator?
Yeah, go ahead, Rishi, and I can go next.
Okay. Yeah. So I have a very simple solution for this, James, which is that I'm coming to you right now and I'm asking you, do you feel you're overcharging for your product?
No.
Okay. Now take a pen and paper, and in a piece of paper, explain to me why you are not overcharging. That is your price justification. It's
Okay.
as simple as that. It's basically us acknowledging that this is the price point for the product, and then us giving a proper justification for I'll give you the best example. 10 years ago, I worked with a health supplement that makes cherry supplements. And he was telling me a story about the fact that he sells those products in these trade shows. And he said his product costs $30 a bottle. And he says, I said, what is the biggest objection you get when you're at trade shows? And he's like, single biggest objection is price point. And I said, what do you tell them when they object about price? He says, Rishi, the thing is that the way we manufacture our cherry supplements is we actually use the whole pulp. We use the skin as well. And he says what this does is it has lots of nutritional benefits, but it's also very complicated to manufacture with the skin. He gave me some beautiful explanation for it. And I found it super compelling. So what we did was, to the right of the price point on the product page, we added a link that says price explanation. And when you clicked on it, we showed a pop-up where we actually said, that we acknowledge up front, there are alternatives that are way cheaper than us. Let me explain to you why we charge more. And we talked about the fact that our manufacturing process is much more expensive and what the benefits are. And we were able to improve conversion rates of that bestseller by like 27% or something. So by just simply explain, and I'm not saying that that same explanation would work for you, but my point is that there is a really good reason why you charge what you do. And it's probably because you are using superior ingredients and you care about quality and you care about customer. I would say customer service is one thing that people discount quite a bit. Consumers discount. So when we say pay more because we have excellent customer service, consumers believe that, well, I'll never have a customer service question. I don't want to pay a premium for it. So I would say get away from that explanation. I would really focus on efficacy of the product and the quality of the ingredients. And that would be how I would start off. And then, of course, at the bottom of that explanation, you would have a little kind of a link that says, did we satisfactorily address your question? And if 80% of people say no, well, guess what? You got to rewrite it.
Yeah, I would say, talking about the product and everything we've addressed about how educating on people, how it works. Like Rishi's outlined here for saying there are so many other brands and only a few people land here. That plays well into the strategy of why the product would potentially cost more or others, right? It works better. It's because of how it's manufactured. That manufacturing is expensive. If I was just selling you a cheap multivitamin, I wouldn't need to charge you all this money. There's some copy there. If I was selling you a cheap multivitamin, I wouldn't have to charge you as much money. So, and then as for the subscription related question, yes, we do have brands that look at it. There's a lot of variety. There's some brands that approach a big discount game, especially in the supplement industry, where they're selling, say, like protein powders and things like that. And they're running testing and campaigns where they're doing 10, 20, 30 or 20 or 30% discounts to see how that affects their conversions related to subscriptions. There are also other brands that are doing 5%. So I think the idea of not offering one, you could try it, but I think the idea is you start with something that's a 5 or 10%. And there's a couple of ways to approach it. One is understanding from a copy perspective that this is an exchange of value, right? The consumer is getting the benefit of not having to think about it and worry about it, but you're also getting the benefit of having future booked business. And so the consumer understands that is a trade-off. And so giving them a discount in relation for them engaging in that relationship, I think is important, and one that a lot of people are going to expect. It doesn't have to be 20% necessarily to make that work. Alternatively, one of our more successful brands does something with progressive discounts. So they'll do 5% month 1, Month 2 is 10%. Month 3 is 15%. And the only way you can get to they do a max discount of 30% is at the 6-month mark. And after that point, so it's just a question of approaching how you want to think about loyalty. Like you're saying, you have a loyalty program where every 3 orders you give free product. Well, maybe it's that 3rd month you get 20% off that order, or 50% off that order, or something like that, right? So like explaining to the consumer what's going to happen. We're giving you 5% off, or we're giving you 10% off now and 5% off lifetime, as well as every 3rd month you get this, or something like that. You can explain that as part of the nature of the program, as a means of like testing how people are going to engage with that.
Yeah, and that aligns with what we were thinking is progressively, you know, so having an initial offer that's maybe not as big, but the longer that you stay on, recognizing the investment that customer has made to stick around that long, increase the offering, and tying it to the data of like, you know, when people are dropping off. And so if everyone's dropping off right before their 3rd month, maybe we should have our first incentive be at month 3 or cycle 3.
Yeah, letting them know that that's coming.
Right.
And then we talked a lot about that language related to like, instead of pausing or canceling, pushing your order out. That's the same thing. So if you're talking about progressive discounts, the way you can use that is, hey, just so you know, like if you're canceling because you have too much product, don't, because you'll lose out on these other discounts. Just push the date out. If you're canceling because you don't like the product anymore, it doesn't matter what discount you offer somebody. They're gone. So you want to focus on the people that are leaving for a reason other than they don't like the product. People that are leaving because of too much product, it didn't arrive, you know, whatever, they didn't like this flavor, whatever those reasons are, you can play into those types of things and incentivize them to stick around.
Yeah.
One point I want to make is that I think it's a good idea to not offer a discount, or offer a discount that is very small, because in my experience working with other subscription-based companies, whenever you offer a big discount, let's say even like 15%, whenever I looked at the data, and especially like the cancellation data, a lot of people just buy the subscription and cancel right away because it's cheaper. So now they're gaming the system, right? So that's another kind of like insight that I don't know if it's something that you guys have seen as well.
I mean, it depends. Some do, some can, like it all comes down to like some businesses find success when they do offer those big discounts, while a lot of those people might churn. They still acquire a core group of customers that stick around for a long time. So it kind of depends on how you approach like cohorting people and LTV. But James and Kyle, I would stress again, like there are very few products that can say that this is either life-saving or life-altering, right? If I'm buying pet food, you know, the thing is with, if I'm buying pet food for my pet, some of the objections that I might go off of a subscription are, I just buy more when I need it. And that depends. And if I really don't, and if I really need it, I can literally go to the PetSmart down the street. So you're talking about a product where they can't get it anywhere else. And if it is life-saving and something that needs to be taken on a regular basis, you can always stress the importance of making sure you have the product on a regular cadence and not running out, right? Not running out is a problem, making sure that's happening. So that can be something like addressing it in copy, on the product page, on communications. And that would be a way of like moving a little bit away from the discount, isn't so much, as well as the community and or engagement, and also the actual product itself, how important it is to have it. Shipping is unpredictable, all those things, right? So like being able to say you can get the product when you need it, never run out. Another thing is if you're running, we talked about products running out. Another common thing you should be addressing is making sure you're reserving product for subscribers versus one-time triers, right? So it's a product that you'll like, we will never run out of product for our subscribers. We will stop selling it on the site for one-time users before we stop selling it to our subscribers.
These are great copy tips, by the way. Great, excellent points, Matt.
Yeah, good ideas.